Welcome back, everybody. So today we're looking at end sheets and value adds for novels. So let's talk about it a little bit. So first up, what is an end sheet? So this gray sheet on the inside of a hardcover is called an end sheet. It's a little bit thicker than the next page. So the actual content pages of the book are thinner. So the end sheet or end page is thicker, and in this case is opaque. So this has a little bit more transparency than this sheet does. Now the job of this end sheet is really to, if you look at how books are constructed, hardcover books are constructed, you see evidence of stitching in here. And what happens is during construction, I don't know if you can see this, we're going to give it a shot. You can see where the end page was glued to the first page of the book. And that's to cover this gap, which hopefully you can see on camera. And so during construction, the hardcover is sewn in signatures in this section here, and attached to the cover material, whatever it is. And when that's done, and this is inside the cover material, there's a gap here that has not the best look. So book manufacturers, they use end sheets to cover the unsightly gap that is created here. And they do it front and back. You see the same thing going on here. Again, the end sheet is glued along here to the last sheet in the novel. And these cover the gaps in the construction process and make the book better in appearance, aesthetically pleasing, and a bit more durable. Because the gluing of this section here, which is what you see, actually helps support the construction of the book. So that's what I mean when I talk about end sheets. Now the thing is that today we have an evolving situation in the publishing industry. We have modern technology that is pushing against the traditional means that books are made, the ways they're made. And in historical terms, say 100 years ago, it was difficult and expensive to create different effects in books. But you still had books where they're a luxury item and they're a relatively high cost item in some ways. So say 100 years ago, you had classical, what we look at as classical construction methods that have now evolved. So this looks like a traditional hardcover, but it's not constructed the same way a hardcover was constructed 100 years ago. It's similar in appearance because that appearance familiarity encourages the buyer to pay more for it. This is cardboard. The sewing is, there may be glue in the back spine. The cardboard is wrapped in an inexpensive material. Could be paper, could be some blend of fabric, or paper and fabric mixture. Where in older years you may have seen a thin a thin layer of a leather going on, and if in older books you'll see ribs that go across the spine. Those are indicators of different construction, and as time evolves, the industry moves toward less expensive techniques that give the same or similar appearance. So in that process, a lot of books that traditionally would have included more art, art became expensive because publishers have to pay artists for the art. And reproducing art using older publishing techniques was expensive. And if a book is made using metal plates, which were common to, say, the mid part of the last century, each of those is burned. Each of those is handled by human beings and then mounted to presses and etc., ink flows. And each level of that step that requires human intervention adds to costs. And reproducing images and artwork is tricky. It's hard. And so the advent of new technology has been changing the metrics of the publishing industry because we have digital, we have ways of handling materials that don't require direct human intervention at every step. And that is true as well for end papers. So I'm going to take you through my process of creating an end paper for my upcoming novel, The Bug Mage. And I'll show you kind of the steps in that process and why I made certain choices. So here we go. I'm going to put this aside. So I started off with a large sheet of paper. And on that paper, I separated off. I intended to do the whole sheet, so to have one end page covering, and it was very intense and took a lot of time. So I ended up, let me turn this around to the direction I actually used. I ended up doing half a sheet. That's why you see the rest of this empty paper. I drew all of these bugs. The novel is titled The Bug Mage, and I wanted an end paper that reflected some aspect of the novel. And so I decided that aspect would be bugs because she's the Bug Mage. And so I drew all these bugs. They are all different individually, which was a treat. This was a lot of work. So I think I remember it taking me the better part of a week of daily drawing, 6 to 8 hours a day. So this is within my capability. It may not be within yours, but you have options to hire art or to go to a site where you can purchase art for, you could purchase, say, a bug for a certain amount of money and have it licensed to you for use. And you could generate a pattern for yourself. A lot of older or classical end pages have a full coverage bleed with a pattern. And although this is a pattern, but the whole sheet is a pattern, not individual pieces. So on traditional or classical end paper, there is some kind of pattern that when you open the book, you're confronted in a sense with the pattern of the artist, whatever that choice is. So if you have a book that has a mermaid in it, your end paper may depict a mermaid scene that flows across both pages. So for my choice for the Bug Mage, I chose bugs. My next choice was I wanted a window to fit over the facing or first page of my novel on the end paper, and to have an opening that I could view. The reader will see, you'll see it in a minute, how this applied to this with a from the library of type thing, so that the reader can actually write on the book their ownership. It's something that was more common in earlier books, and I always loved it when I found it in books from the library or from the bookstore, that you can see the kind of the history of the novel, of that particular novel. And so I liked it, so I decided to incorporate that. And I had this photographed at 300 dpi, and I had this photographed at 300 dpi. And I married the two together to create this. Now this is at the scale of the finished novel, which is 6x9. And it's incorporated, it's when they if they were to trim out the individual sheet, about 1/4 inch of this would be cut off. And that's called, so when you have an image that goes past the edge of your book, it's called a bleed. And so the bleed here would be cut off on all sides if this were just an individual sheet being cut out. So what I did was I took the file, the 300 dpi file, which was a PNG, I think, and I went ahead and took it into my computer program, and on this one I erased around it so that what was around the outer edges of this became invisible. And there is a setting in your photographic tool that allows you to erase the background. So essentially I erased the background and then put the background, I married the background over this image, again inside the computer file, to create this type of effect. Although in this particular image that I'm showing you here, it didn't pick up the detail on my drawing correctly, and that was from a poor quality scan. So the actual finished product is much sharper than this turns out to look like in this particular sample. But this gives you a good idea of how I elected to do that. So in the book, if I take a look at the book again, this would be on this page, and the pattern would continue over this part of the end sheet. I'd simply join the pattern together with itself, and you'll end up with a seamless flow of bugs, but 2 of each, because I'm flowing it across the 2 pages. And again, I will have the same thing happening here, only this will be all bugs. And that is the end sheets, my choice of end sheets for the Bug Mage. Now this application is going to go on both hardcover and paperback. Today the paperback is kind of in a revival, and you can do end pages on the very first page of your paperback, and on the inside of the paperback printed cover. So you're choosing to have the outside of your cover with art for your regular cover, and you're having the inside of that thickened cardstock printed with your choice of end paper design. Now you can go full color on both sides, which it can look quite stunning. And then the inside first page of the novel is picking up the second half of your end sheet. And so that ends up being printed in color as well if you're going color. Now, I'm going with quite a bit of art in the Bug Mage, and I'm not considering color at this point. That may be a future edition if it sells well. But at the moment, I decided, and the reason I did this art was it was black and white, which is the least expensive handling image design is an illustrated black and white. And so I can go for a quality book with upgrade illustrations, but not have to go the next level to full color. And so I'm trying to balance the part of giving the reader good art at the same time controlling for a reasonable price on the book. So because I'm the artist in this case, the quote-unquote publisher is not paying for the considerable amount of art that's in the book in the way that most publishers today would be paying an artist to do this in a traditional house. So anyway, this is what an end sheet is and what it can look like and how you can achieve it if you are artistic or a little bit computer skilled. You can generate the end sheet design yourself and control what it looks like and deliver to the reader an exciting change from what they normally purchase in the book. It elevates your book from the next one that might be in the similar category, and it gives the reader sort of a little extra swag. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is all about end sheets.